Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. It's time for your daily dose of fragrance content. In my hands I'm holding 3 scents from the brand of Fragrance World. And today I'm going to try them for the first time. The scents are Soir, as you can probably guess by the name of this fragrance. This is supposedly inspired by Grand Soir from MFK. Supreme LHomme, which is supposedly inspired by LHomme Ideal from Guerlain, and the last one is called just Aswad, and this is supposedly inspired by Dior Sauvage Elixir and even something like Lattafa Assad. So let's unpack them and let's try them for the first time. The first one that I'm going to try out will be Soir from Fragrance World, and this is one of the later Fragrance World releases, one of the latest releases from the brand of Fragrance World. The other two have been around for a while, but I'm curious to check out this one first. As I said, supposedly this is inspired by Grand Soir from MFK. This is how the box looks, white with some golden and sort of an orange colored accents. The production date here, if anyone is interested, is June of 2024, so quite a recent bottle. Let's check out the bottle design. And it's an interesting bottle design, definitely has pretty much nothing in common with the original scent. Let's check out the sprayer and see how good of a job Fragrance World have done with this one. Sprayer is actually nice, it's pressurized, actually very nice. If you're not familiar with the original fragrance, it's a fragrance that heavily relies on a few sweet notes like amber and vanilla. You got some spices, you got some woods, a very sweet fragrance that's perfectly unisex. If you're not familiar with the original fragrance, maybe you have tried Lattafa Eternal Oud, which is a very good clone of Grand Soir. And I can already tell you in the air that Soir from Fragrance World is also a very good clone of Grand Soir. Opens up very sweet, maybe a hint of booziness in here, there's a touch of spiciness, maybe some slight sort of freshness from some citrusy notes, but definitely very heavy on the vanilla and the amber sweetness, and in this case I think it's more of a vanillic sweetness. Maybe a hint of some sort of smoky note somewhere in the background, some woodsy notes definitely on the background as well, but definitely very sweet scent that is close to the original fragrance. Maybe feels a little bit more airy, maybe feels a little bit less sweet. This one feels maybe there's a sort of like an orange or mandarin note, which is quite strong in the opening, and lots of vanilla with the amber somewhere in the background. But yeah, definitely seems to be very close to Grand Soir from MFK. I'm going to give it 30-40 minutes so that fragrance can settle down a little bit, and then I'm going to come back to check the early dry down of Soir. The next one that I'm going to check out will be just Aswad from, I think, Atour LHomme in this case, or maybe it's Fragrance World. No, I think it's Fragrance World. Okay, so this one is supposedly inspired by Dior Sauvage Elixir, but people also have compared this to Lattafa Assad, so let's check this one out. This is how the bottle looks, black colored box with golden accents. Again, here the production date, if anyone is interested, is again June of 2024. Now this is an interesting fragrance that's received quite a bit of hype, but also quite a bit of hate in the community, and probably the main reason is because this feels, design wise, the bottle feels very similar to Lattafa Assad, and actually it does in person as well. I've only seen it in photos before. It feels the same plasticky way as the the Assad bottle, although this feels slightly more compact. Let's check out the sprayer and let's see how this one smells. Again, another pressurized atomizer, great, absolutely love it. Let's see how this one smells. Yep, it is Dior Sauvage Elixir. But actually this is closer to Sauvage Elixir than Assad is from Lattafa. This definitely feels quite a bit more spicy compared to Assad. Assad is a very good clone, but it's more of a twist actually rather than the straight up clone. Assad feels like a way sweeter, more vanillic take on the original DNA, whereas just Aswad actually feels very similar to the Sauvage Elixir. It gets almost as spicy as the original fragrance. the nutmeg, the cinnamon with a bit of grapefruit, some lavender, some licorice, quite a strong licorice note, some ambery sweetness somewhere in the background. But yeah, definitely smells very similar to Sauvage Elixir, yet another Elixir clone. And to be honest, I'm not sure why this gets quite a bit of hate. Maybe again because it's design-wise it's pretty similar to Aswad, but this actually feels way closer to the original fragrance compared to Aswad. And the last one that I'm going to try out will be Supreme LHomme. This of course supposedly cloning LHomme Ideal from Guerlain. So let's see how this one smells. White colored box with some silver and black accents. The production date here is July of 2022. So this is actually quite an old bottle, more than 2 years old at this point. Bottle design is somewhat similar to the original fragrance. 100 milliliter bottle size, EDP concentration. Let's check out the sprayer here and see how this one smells. This sprayer is not as good as the previous two, unfortunately, although still is pretty similar. And yeah, this smells nice. Opens up, there's a bit of an alcohol harshness in the opening of this one. Let me give it a few seconds more. So it opens up with some citruses, just like the original fragrance. There's an orange note in here. There's some other slightly fresher citruses. There's also something bitter in here, like a bitter almond, like the original fragrance has. There's some sweetness. There's some leather in the background. Some ouds, but this definitely has also a boozy note. Initially I thought this was perfumer's alcohol, but actually I think there's a hint of a boozy note in here. Maybe feels slightly green as well, slightly powdery. But yeah, definitely seems to be close to LHomme Ideal, but at the same time lacks a bit of the sweetness and a bit of the darkness of the original fragrance. This feels in the opening like a slightly more airy, fresher take on the original DNA. But on its own actually doesn't smell bad at all. Just not as good of a clone, at least in the opening, to the original fragrance. Okay, so I've given all three fragrances about 40 minutes so they can settle down and enter their sort of an early dry down, and I'm going to go over them in the same order that I began, starting with Soir from Fragrance World. And again, this is very heavily inspired by Grand Soir from MFK, but again feels like a slightly lighter take on the original DNA, a slightly more vanillic take. On the early dry down, this still remains quite heavy on the vanilla note. On the early dry down, the amber note also starts to pick up some strength, but it's nowhere near as strong as you get with the original fragrance, and also like you get with Eternal Oud from Lattafa. This is slightly less sweet of a fragrance, and that sort of a heavy take on the vanillic sweetness makes it perfectly unisex in my opinion, maybe even leaning a little bit to the feminine side. On the dry down you get some ouds, but it's all about the sweetness of vanilla and amber. The next one in line will be just Aswad, of course, and this being heavily inspired by Dior Sauvage Elixir, and on the early dry down this still remains very, very similar to Elixir, and in fact this might even smell a little bit more spicy compared even to the original fragrance, which already is very, very spicy. The licorice note is very, very strong, the nutmeg note is still very strong. There's some lavender in here as well. On the early dry down you're starting to get some ouds and a bit of ambery sweetness. But I even think that the original fragrance at this point feels, at this point of its life in the early dry down feels a little bit sweeter than just Aswad. So think of just Aswad as like a slightly less sweet, slightly more spicy take on the Elixir DNA. And the last one will be Supreme LHomme. Now, after I recorded the original unpacking, I actually sprayed a little bit on my hand. I just wanted to see how this one smells on skin. And there's definitely a bit of differences here. On skin it doesn't feel as fresh as it felt on the paper strip. And also on skin it doesn't feel as boozy as I got from the paper strip. And actually on the early dry down this starts to become pretty similar to LHomme Ideal. The almond note is there, slightly bitter, giving it a nice nutty warmth on the early dry down. There's some tonka bean which adds sweetness, adds a bit of powderness. There's maybe a hint of leather, some ouds, but you also still get a bit of a freshness from the citrusy notes. They're still there in the early dry down. And actually on skin I really like this one. Smells very classy, just like the original fragrances. And all around I've been actually quite impressed by Supreme LHomme. And for me the star of the show tonight actually has been Supreme LHomme from Fragrance World. This one smells really nice, especially on skin. Smells really classy, and I hope that it has at least decent performance. So for me this has been the best find out of all three today. And so guys, in today's video I unpacked and tried for the first time 3 scents from the brand of Fragrance World. I hope that you found this video interesting or entertaining. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.